floor. Practice in front of that mirror, girl, you twerking it on the dance floor. Practice in front of that mirror, girl, you twerking it on the practice in front of that mirror, girl, you twerking it on the dance floor. Practice in front of that mirror, girl, you twerking it on the floor. Twerking it on the dance floor. Twerking it on the dance floor. Twerking it on the dance floor. Twerking it on.
Hey, what's up guys? So I wanted to do a quick video on an article that's been making its rounds on social media lately. And I think it's a good article to sort of pick apart because it really does address all of the sort of common claims that are made against sugar. And there are 11 statements made in total, so I'm going to take each one by one and look at them more closely. Now, it's worth noting that there is not one citation in this whole article, even though she does reference some studies, which I had to sort of go and hunt down on my own. That sort of renders the scientific credibility of this particular article low right from the very beginning. And before I start addressing these issues one by one, I just want to give credit where credit is due, and a lot of the information that I'm going to be presenting comes either from Alan Aragon's research review or from a debate or series of debates that he had online with Robert Lustig. So I'll put links to both of those things in the description box below so you can have a look for yourself and figure out where all this is coming from, or where a lot of it is coming from. Okay, so let's start with number one. The author says, sugar makes your organs fat, and fructose, a component of table sugar and high fructose corn syrup, in added sugars triggers your liver to store fat more efficiently. Okay, so this is coming from a 2009 study where two groups were given either glucose or fructose in the form of a soft drink that was supposed to make up 25% of their daily caloric intake for 10 weeks. And at the end of the studies, the researchers found that dietary fructose specifically increases de novo lipogenesis, promotes dyslipidemia, decreases insulin sensitivity, and increases visceral adiposity in overweight/obese adults. And it is this visceral adiposity that the author is referring to in this point. But honestly, who really gets 25% of their daily caloric intake from fructose? In this study, the subjects had to eat 150 grams of pure fructose per day to meet that requirement, in addition to eating their ad libitum diet, so however much food they wanted, on which they were already gaining weight. And just to give you an idea, to get 150 grams of pure fructose, you would have to eat 7 cans of Pepsi every day, in addition to the diet that you are already eating. So what this study really shows us is that when obese women who are eating however much they want add 150 grams of fructose, they start seeing increases in visceral fat. But to apply this study to active, healthy populations, eating sugar in moderation is definitely imprudent. Okay, so number two, sugar primes your body for diabetes. So she mentions a Public Library of Science study, which I dug up and found out that it was authored by none other than Robert H. Lustig. And for those of you guys who don't know who he is, I'll put a link somewhere here so you guys can go and read more up on the sort of stuff that he espouses. But I'll just say that Lustig is notorious for cherry-picking observational data to support his stance. And furthermore, this specific correlational research, which does have its place, is not showing us causation at all. We can't get from this correlation between increased fructose and increased diabetes prevalence to the idea that fructose causes diabetes or is somehow associated in a causal chain linked to diabetes. Number three, sugar hammers your heart. Now, this is just simply a hasty generalization combined with some fear-mongering. She's assuming that because sugar has a clear impact on type 2 diabetes, then it also has a clear impact on heart disease and stroke. But this just assumes way too much. First of all, this warning is only relevant to populations who already have diabetes, and then it assumes that the increased risk of heart disease is due to the sugar and not the plethora of other factors also associated with diabetics, like reduced physical activity and high caloric intakes overall. Number 4, sugar creates tense blood vessels. So this is essentially saying that fructose causes increased blood pressure, or sugar causes increased blood pressure. And I'll just refer you guys to a 2012 systematic review on this exact issue, which concluded fructose intake and isocaloric exchange for other carbohydrates significantly decreased diastolic and mean arterial blood pressure, and there was no significant effect of fructose on systolic blood pressure. Again, these things aren't as clear-cut as the author would have you believe. Number 5, sugar promotes cholesterol chaos. And furthermore, sugar overload could spark your liver to churn out more bad cholesterol while also inhibiting your body's ability to clear it out. Now, first of all, let's be wary of the term sugar overload. I'm not even sure what that means. In this study, of over 25,000 subjects concluded that fructose and non-fructose sugar intakes had no positive association with blood concentrations of triglycerides, HDL, cholesterol, and so on when consumed in typical amounts. Number 6, it leads to type 3 diabetes. So I actually dug this study up and I did a search of the entire paper for both sugar and for fructose, and no results were found for either term. So I think that at this point, the author of the article is just sort of making stuff up on her own. So we're over halfway there. Number 7, sugar turns you into a junkie. Now this is a complex subject, and something like addiction is not very easy to demarcate within the psychological community. But I'll just quote a 1997 review on carbohydrate addiction, which said, "Evidence for the physiological basis of carbohydrate addiction is weak compared to drug addictions. And if carbohydrate addiction is a genuine phenomena, then it is probably a habitual dependence based on strong reinforcement like gambling rather than a substance-based one." Number 8, sugar turns you into a ravenous animal. In rats, yes. In humans, no. I assure you, claims about fructose not affecting satiety in humans have not stood up in clinical trials. And I'll quote a 2009 review on fructose and satiety to summarize my point. Given the overall lack of consistency across experimental designs, the case for a lower satiating efficacy of fructose as a contributor to the current obesity epidemic is simply not compelling. Number 9, sugar makes you an energy-starved zombie. Given that sugar is itself a preferred energy source, to say that it makes you energy-starved is not even logically consistent. Number 10, sugar turns your smile upside down. The claim is that those who ate the most junk food faced a nearly 40% greater risk of developing depression. Again, something as complex as depression can't possibly be reduced to something as one-dimensional as sugar intake. There are just too many factors at play to be this reductionistic. And finally, number 11, sugar wrecks your face. Again, I did track down the paper she is referring to, and it does confirm that glucose and fructose link the amino acids present in the collagen and elastin that support the dermis, producing advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. In that, this process is accelerated in all body tissues when sugar is elevated. However, in this entire paper, no reference to actual controlled trials that investigate the specific effect of increasing dietary sugar consumption on AGE accumulation was made. And the one paper that was cited only notes a strong relationship between skin elasticity and age, as in aging, and body mass index, not sugar intake or anything of the sort. And so the author of the paper seems to be operating under the premise that since sugar is necessary to produce AGEs, then increasing sugar in the diet will necessarily lead to an increase in AGEs. But no evidence is provided to support this claim, so for now I think I'd be best off just putting a question mark on this one. Okay guys, so the bottom line here is that sugar is often villainized for all sorts of bad things. But it is important to realize that there are so many other factors that come into play here, and to reduce everything to being sugar's fault is simply a matter of being ignorant to the data or just being intellectually dishonest. And to conclude, I'll finish by saying that 60 grams of fructose per day seems to have no negative effects on anything. And in active individuals, it would be silly to think that consuming this amount of fructose is going to have any sort of negative impact on measures of health, especially within the context of an overall healthy diet and a good exercise program. All right, guys, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already.